Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a video, just kind of like a little get ready with me, but mainly this video is going to be comparing the Wet n Wild Rosé in the Air palette to the ever so famous Modern Renaissance palette from ABH. So if you guys want to see how they compare to each other, then just keep watching. Okay guys, so the first thing I'm going to start with is the Fenty Beauty Foundation. I have actually been liking this. Now I am going to mix it with a little bit of the NYX Pro Mixer, like the white color foundation, just because it does kind of oxidize a little bit, so I would recommend getting like a shade lighter, like just a shade lighter, because it will oxidize just to like a tad bit of a darker shade. Then of course gonna go ahead and blend that out with my beauty blender. Mine is dirty, so please excuse that. I'm gonna go ahead and use the ColourPop No Filter Concealer and just go ahead and put that on my under eyes and just everywhere else that I want to conceal. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of baking, and for that I'm going to use the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Powder. This is in the shade Fair Light, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of tap some of that out, and then just kind of bake my face a little bit. Not really actually going to bake, I'm just going to kind of like set everything. Alright, so for bronzer, I'm going to go ahead and use my Tarte Park Avenue Princess bronzer kind of palette. So I'm just going to use the Park Avenue Princess bronzer and then the blush that comes in this palette. For highlight, I'm going to go ahead and use the Desi X Katy collab with Dose of Colors, and this is in the color Fuego. So for brows, I'm just going to go ahead and use my Anastasia brow powder. Alright, so now that brows are done, I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you a little comparison of the ABH Modern Renaissance and the Wet n Wild Rosé in the Air palette. So here they are. Hopefully you guys can tell just by kind of looking at them in the pans that they are so similar, and I actually did do some swatches over on my Instagram kind of comparing you know, the shades to one another. Now the formula, however, is a little bit different, of course. The ABH just feels nice and kind of buttery and smooth, and the Wet n Wild palette feels a little bit more chalky, unfortunately. However, I have not tried them on my eyes, so that's just from the feel, like the touch of the swatch. So the only real way to compare them is to just put them both on the eyes. So what I think I'm going to go ahead and do is I'll have the ABH on my left side, my left eye, and then I'll go ahead and use the Wet n Wild Rosé in the Air on this side of my face. So for this eyeshadow look, I am definitely going to use the shades that look, you know, identical to the ones in the ABH palette. So I'm really going to try to make this look identical to each other. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first shade I'm going to go in with is this shade right here with the Wet n Wild. Is just that nice kind of cream white color shade, and I'm just going to put that all over the lid just to kind of give us a nice little canvas, blank canvas to start with. Then of course I'm going to take the kind of white cream shade color in the Modern Renaissance palette, which is called Tempera, and put that on the other eye. I was just like listening to a YouTube video and I totally forgot that it was playing while I was trying to film. So sorry about that. So far the Tempera from the ABH palette seems to be a little bit whiter and brighter. but it is just to kind of give us a blank canvas, so that's not really a huge deal. Alright, so for the transition, I'm going to go ahead and use this bottom shade right here for this side of my eye, and the closest shade in the ABH palette is this shade right here, which is called Raw Sienna. So this one is from the Wet n Wild palette, and actually that has really great pigmentation, so that's awesome. Just gonna blend. Next shade I'm going to go in with is this top transition right here, and the closest one in the ABH palette is called Warm Taupe, which is this guy right here. Okay, so the next shade I'm going to take is this pink shade right here, and of course that is Love Letter in the ABH palette. So this one right here. This is the Wet n Wild, and I'm just going to kind of put that through the crease. I feel like I have to dip in again just to kind of get that pigmentation. Okay, I don't really like the way that's blending, but it looks okay right now. I'm gonna go ahead and take Love Letter on the other eye. Love Letter from ABH just has more pigmentation, and it just kind of blends a little bit easier. I'm gonna go back in with the Wet n Wild and try to blend that again. This one's definitely a little bit harder to blend. It doesn't really want to blend very well, but it's definitely doable. Like, you can definitely make it work. It just doesn't blend as easily as the ABH Love Letter does. The next shade I want to go in with is this dark brown right here, and that is closest to Cypress Umber in the ABH palette. Let's go ahead and see how this blends out. It does have good pigmentation, so hopefully it's easy to blend out. I'm gonna go ahead and take Cypress Umber now. I'm gonna go in with a little bit more Wet n Wild and kind of try to blend that out a little bit more. Okay, I feel like that's looking pretty similar. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take the Raw Sienna in this palette and the transition shade right here that looks the most similar to Raw Sienna, and just kind of go over those edges and blend them out a little bit. Okay, so the final colors that are the most similar, I would say like Antique Bronze right here and the Primavera. Those are the only two that are kind of similar in this Wet n Wild palette. So these two right here, those are the most similar. So since the Antique Bronze and this one are a little bit darker, I think I'm going to go ahead and use the lighter shade that is most similar to Primavera and just compare those and see how they look next to each other. So I'm just going to use my fingertip, and of course I'm going to use Primavera on this side. So I'm just going to kind of place that on the lid. Of course, like the shimmers in this ABH palette, they really do like pack a punch. They're nice and buttery and smooth and creamy, and I just love them. And now I'm gonna go in with the Wet n Wild kind of gold shimmery shade. Now it's slightly different. It's almost like a little bit more orangey. The Primavera from the ABH is definitely more bright and reflective, while this one is definitely darker and not as bright. But I mean, of course, you can pretty much achieve the same look. I'm just letting you guys know that there is a slight difference to where they don't look identical, for sure. Like, pretty much everything else looks identical except for those shades. So I think now, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna go ahead and use that kind of dark mauvey brown color that is close to the antique bronze right here, and just kind of put that like on the outer lid. So this is antique bronze from ABH, so I'm going to put it on this side, and that looks very nice. And now I'm going to use the Wet n Wild and put it on this side as well. I would have to say the antique bronze in the ABH is definitely more like a purpley undertone, while this one in the Wet n Wild palette is a little bit more reddish tone, but they are pretty similar. I would say the only thing that really looks different is this shade right here, which is just that shimmery gold shade. So just for that reason, I think I'm going to go ahead and take some of Primavera and put it on the other side of my lid, just because it doesn't look the same as my other eye, and I don't want to be like, you know, walking around with two different shades on my lid. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do the bottom lash line. I'm going to take the raw sienna and the shade that looks very similar in the Wet n Wild and put that under the lower lash line. They did a really nice job with like the transition shades, just the and like the mattes, but the shimmers definitely are just a little bit off. They're not, you know, exactly the same. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take the brown from the Wet n Wild and the brown from the ABH and go ahead and use like a little flat definer brush and put that underneath the lash line. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw some mascara on, and I will be right back. Alright guys, so this is the finished look. I feel like the eyeshadow really did turn out like so similar, and I am really impressed by the Wet n Wild palette. I think it performed really well. Definitely kind of have to like go back in and kind of build up just to get like the same result as the Modern Renaissance palette. But overall, like, I'm so impressed with this. I mean, literally guys, I think this was $4.80 or something like that. So it's like $5, you guys. Like, you can't go wrong with that. So if you haven't bought this palette yet and you've been wanting it, I definitely recommend trying the Wet n Wild first and just kind of seeing how you like it. There are 10 shades in the Wet n Wild and there are 14 in the ABH. So of course you don't get all of these shades that are in the ABH, but you do get kind of like the main I would say popular kind of shades in there. And like I said, if you haven't tried the Modern Renaissance yet, definitely recommend trying the Wet n Wild one, because as you can see, you can basically achieve the same look. Let me know what you thought. Do you think that it turned out pretty similar, or do you think it looks slightly different or completely different? Let me know, comment what you think down below. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. And of course, if you want to get notified for every video that I upload, go ahead and hit that little bell. That'll turn the post notifications on and let you know when I post. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!